Imagine a world where every single drop of magic comes from the polished bones of dead mythical beasts. You know, dragons, griffins, Pegasi.
Right, there's no, infinite cosmic well of energy to draw from.
Exactly. It's just this supply chain of miracles that is literally built on death.
And not just death, but a rapidly approaching extinction. The creatures are dying out, the magic is fading, and nobody in this world seems to understand why.
Welcome to today's deep dive into Jessi Cole Jackson's debut fantasy novel, Ruinous Creatures. We're on a mission today to explore this really fascinating and honestly somewhat gruesome magical ecosystem for you.
Yeah, it gets pretty dark.
It really does. We're going to unpack the mechanics of this world, examine its themes of institutional corruption, and ultimately discover why sometimes you just have to burn a system to the ground to save it.
What's fascinating here is that right from the jump, Jackson is telling us that this isn't just a fantasy story about caring for magical beasts. It's a stark examination of how power is hoarded and the very delicate, very dangerous balance of natural ecology versus human greed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can understand why the magic in this world is fundamentally breaking, we need to understand how the supply chain of this magic is, actually supposed to work.
The status quo, basically.
Exactly. See, society here is split into two very distinct factions. First, you have the keepers. These are the folks who live out in a rural valley, dedicating their entire lives, generation after generation, to caring for the living magical creatures.
They're essentially the stewards of the natural world.
Yeah.
But their role doesn't end when the creatures die. In fact, that's when their most crucial and frankly most dangerous work begins.
And that brings us to our protagonist,
Yeah.
Adela. She is a keeper, specifically an assistant matcher.
Which is such a weird, specific job.
It is. Her job is incredibly sacred but deeply unsettling. When these mythical creatures pass away, Adela takes their skulls into a specialized matching hut.
Right, and she can't just go in unprotected.
No, she has to wear a golden aspen mask. And it's not for physical protection, but for psychological protection. She literally polishes the bones by hand, rubbing specific scented oils into the craggy surfaces of these skulls.
Just to prepare them for the humans who will eventually wear them to wield magic, the level of sensory detail Jackson puts into this process is just staggering.
Oh, absolutely.
The magic system is deeply tied to scent and touch.
It really is. For example, the jackalope skulls, they prefer to be polished with cranberry or mint oil.
Which sounds lovely.
Right. But then griffins are apparently super finicky and demand an ointment of earthy autumnal leaves, followed by spicy peppermint or myrrh.
And then you have the G-trash.
Oh yeah, those massive spectral dog-like creatures. Their bones smell strongly of oak moss.
But the physical polishing is really only half the battle here. We need to talk about the psychological toll this takes on Adela.
Right, because while she's rubbing these oils in, the skulls are not silent.
No, they are not.
They're actually whispering their secret desires, their lingering hungers, directly into her mind.
It's this heavy, crushing burden. She literally feels their want.
And once she has prepared these skulls and silenced the whispers enough to make them safe, they get handed over to the second faction.
The city folks.
Exactly. The religious orders who reside far away in the wealthy, opulent city of Innsborough. You have the Order of the Huntress, the Pupil, and the Spinner.
And this is where the actual wielding of the magic happens. The priests and priestesses in the city, they're called novitiates while they're still in training, they take these prepared skulls and literally strap them to their faces.
Right. Let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. Do the bones dissolve into them? Does it, glow? How does strapping a dead bone to your forehead actually let you cast a spell?
It's a very physical, visceral connection. When they strap the skull on, it essentially links with the wearer's own vitality. It allows the priest to channel the creature's residual innate essence.
Wow.
But here is the catch. The priests don't just use this magic freely for the good of the people. They use it to perform miracles and services, but they charge exorbitant tithes for it.
Like a massive paywall for basic needs.
Exactly.
For instance, if your family member dies, you are required to pay a massive fee to a priest wearing a G-trash skull just to get proper death rites. If you don't pay, your loved one's soul doesn't get guided properly.
Which creates a massive systemic bottleneck of access.
So what does this all mean? As I was reading this, it honestly sounded like a magical pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, totally.
The keepers are essentially the underpaid farmers out in the rural valley growing and harvesting the raw ingredients. And the orders in the city are the massive monolithic corporations bottling that magic up, patenting it and selling the cure at a premium to only those who can afford it.
That analogy is incredibly accurate, and Jackson uses this dynamic to highlight extreme wealth disparity. Out in the valley, the keepers are living on bark tea and root soup in the dead of winter.
Yeah, just scraping by.
They sleep on the hard ground and mend torn clothes. Meanwhile, in the city, the high priestess of the Huntress Order, Sarai, wears a unicorn skull that is literally encrusted with diamonds, opals, and pearls.
It's disgusting, honestly.
She lives in a black marble temple filled with golden candelabras.
Have you ever been part of a system, maybe at work or in a community, where you felt like you were failing, only to realize the rules of the game were entirely rigged against you?
Oh, for sure.
That's exactly what the keepers are experiencing.
Precisely. The real tragedy here isn't just the poverty, it's the ecological collapse. Creature birth rates have plummeted for a century.
The unicorns, the Pegasus, the Kelpies, they are all struggling to reproduce.
And the keepers, because they are so devoted to their jobs, they blame themselves. They think they are failing as caretakers. They have no idea that the system itself is structurally designed to bleed them dry.
But a system that corrupt can only sustain itself for so long. Eventually, the pressure becomes too much, and someone is going to make a mistake that blows the whole thing wide open.
And for Adela, that mistake happens on a totally random afternoon in the matching hut.
Right, it starts with a moment of dangerous curiosity. Adela is working, and the setting sun happens to glint off a high, dusty shelf that she usually ignores.
The forbidden shelf.
Yeah. She climbs up and finds two ancient fossilized skulls hidden up there. They are covered in a thick layer of golden mica, and she realizes with absolute shock that they are phoenix skulls.
A species that has been entirely extinct for centuries.
And she's been expressly told by her mentor, Bartholomew, not to ever touch them. He insists they're just decorations with no residual magic left.
But wait, I have a question about this. If the phoenix species has been extinct for hundreds of years, shouldn't Bartholomew be right?
Do you think so?
Shouldn't those bones be completely inert by now? Why would she even care about dusty old fossils?
Well, that is exactly what a normal keeper would assume. But phoenix magic isn't like guy trash or griffin magic. It is the original spark. It is ancient, primal, and incredibly potent.
So it doesn't fade.
No, it just lies dormant, waiting for a catalyst. And Adela becomes that catalyst. She rebels against her training. She pushes her golden aspen mask aside, exposing herself to the raw bone, and touches her bare cheek to one of the ancient phoenix skulls.
Oh, man.
And it doesn't just hum. It sends a massive golden pulse of ancient magic across the entire valley. It rattles the windows.
It is an absolute explosion of raw, unfiltered power.
And the fallout is immediate, and it is violent. The local creatures completely lose their minds. A dragon named Enchitis goes mad. She kills a kelpie, a griffin, and then she attacks and eats half of Adela's mentor, Bartholomew.
Which is just brutal.
Later on, this same crazed dragon drops out of the sky in the forest and bites a high-ranking priest named Brother Thad completely in half.
Just absolute chaos, bloodshed everywhere. It's a horrifying sequence of events, and it forces us to look at the mechanics of this ecosystem.
Right, because if the Keeper's whole mandate is to protect these creatures and maintain peace, why did Adela's seemingly tiny act of curiosity, just touching a bone to her cheek, cause a dragon to bite a man in half?
We have to look at the magic system like a massive river that has been dammed up. For 300 years, the orders in the city have built this concrete dam to hoard the water, leaving the valley in a severe magical drought.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The creatures have been starving for ambient magic. So when Adela touched the phoenix skull, it wasn't a bomb going off. It was the first massive crack in the concrete of that dam.
Oh, I see. So it flooded the valley.
Exactly. The sudden influx of wild, untamed magic rushing back into a starved ecosystem was sensory overload. The dragon didn't go mad because the phoenix magic is inherently evil. It went mad because the natural balance of the valley had been suppressed for centuries.
And it literally couldn't process the sudden flood of raw power. That makes so much sense. And because the phoenix magic is so ancient and wild, it doesn't just grant a single, straightforward power to the person who wakes it.
It requires a counterbalance.
Right, which leads us to the fact that Adela doesn't just wake up one scenic skull. There were two on that dusty shelf. They're an exact identical pair.
And this duality forms the core of the story. Adela is bonded to one, and shortly after the disaster in the valley, a novitiate priest named Kian is matched with the other.
Now, Kian is a fascinating, complicated character. We learn pretty quickly that his whole pious priest routine is a total sham.
Oh, 100%.
He's actually from a family of smugglers. The Order killed his parents when he was 15, and he has spent the last 15 years infiltrating the Order of the Huntress.
Just biding his time.
Yes, specifically to destroy their stockpile of creature skulls and break their religious monopoly on society.
He's playing a very long, very dangerous game.
But I have to ask, is Kian really the good guy here? He's a smuggler. He's been lying to everyone for a decade and a half. Doesn't his desire for revenge make him just as manipulative as the Order he's trying to destroy?
It's a valid question, and Jackson wants you to feel that moral ambiguity. Kian is deeply flawed, but his ultimate goal isn't to replace the Order and hoard the power for himself.
Right, he wants to tear it down.
His goal is to break the monopoly so the power can flow freely again, and his connection to the magic actually reflects this. Through the research of Adela's best friend, Cecilia, who is this brilliant Valley historian, we learn the truth about Phoenix magic.
That is binary.
Yes, it exists as two halves of a whole, destruction and rebirth.
And Kian possesses rebirth. We see this when he unconsciously heals the horrific whip wounds on his own back, and later when he heals a fellow novitiate.
But Adela.
Right, Adela, the quiet, careful keeper who has spent her life nurturing creatures, possesses destruction.
It is the ultimate irony for her character.
And she is terrified of it. Her power is devastating. During a confrontation, she accidentally vaporizes an entire building with a single thought. Just turns it to dust.
Unbelievable power.
But the most heartbreaking scene is with her star sister, Etana.
We should probably clarify for the listener what a star sister is in this context.
Oh, right. A star sister isn't a biological sibling. In this world, keepers can form a profound, soul-deep bond with a specific creature, almost like a magical tether.
It's a really beautiful concept.
It is. Adela's star sister is a unicorn named Etana. And during a battle, Etana is mortally wounded while protecting Adela. To save the unicorn from hours of agonizing pain, Adela actually has to use her destructive magic to mercifully euthanize her.
That is just gut-wrenching.
It shatters her. She views herself as a monster.
She views destruction as inherently evil, which, is a very natural human reaction.
Right.
But it's a flawed philosophy within the context of a corrupted world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about a forest fire. To us, a forest fire looks like pure, unadulterated devastation. It's terrifying.
Absolutely.
But ecologically, you absolutely need the terrifying, destructive blaze to clear out all the rotting dead wood of the forest so that the canopy opens up and sunlight can reach the floor.
Right, you need the fire so that the new seeds of life can actually reach the soil, take root, and grow.
Exactly. Without the fire, the forest just chokes on its own rot.
That is the perfect analogy for the paradox Jackson is exploring in the title Ruinous Creatures. Adela hates herself for being destruction. She feels ruinous.
Yeah.
But Jackson is challenging the reader and you, the listener right now, to critically analyze this. In a deeply corrupt society that refuses to change, a society that deliberately starves the poor and hoards wealth, destruction isn't evil.
It's necessary.
It is a necessary moral tool for dismantling the unfixable. Sometimes, to save the forest, you have to be the fire.
You have to be willing to be the ruinous creature. And to understand exactly what Adela needs to destroy, we have to follow her and Kian into the belly of the beast.
Into Innsbruck.
Right, because once they realize the system is broken, they sneak into the Temple of the Huntress to uncover the Order's darkest secrets.
The ultimate truth behind the dying magic and the starving creatures.
Adela, because she's a keeper and has this deep psychological connection to the bones, starts hearing these agonizing whispers. But not just a few, like in her matching hut.
It's overwhelming.
Thousands upon thousands of trapped souls whispering from beneath the temple floors. She and Kian sneak down into the catacombs and discover a massive subterranean crypt. And it is filled, literally floor to ceiling, with hoarded creature skulls. Jackalopes, pegasi, massive dragons, and cathpalugs.
For context, cathpalugs are these massive, monstrous felines from folklore, and the sheer volume of bones down there is staggering.
It's a literal bone crypt of hoarded miracles. And High Priestess Sarai catches them down there and reveals the ugly truth.
This is the turning point.
See, for 300 years, the keepers out in the valley assumed that when a priest died, the Order was burning the skull. They thought the creature's residual magic was being released, returning to the earth to be reborn into new creatures.
But they weren't.
No. For 3 centuries, the Orders have been stockpiling them to maintain absolute power and a total monopoly on magic.
They systematically cut off the natural life cycle completely.
But hold on, I have to push back on Sarai's logic here. Why would the High Priestess intentionally hoard the magic if it means starving the very valley that produces the creatures in the first place?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. If the creatures go extinct, the orders eventually lose their power anyway. It just seems like an incredibly short-sighted, bad business model.
This raises an important question, and it is the ultimate critique of institutional greed in the novel. You are absolutely right that it is unsustainable. But Sarai and the generations of high priestesses before her chose short-term, absolute control over long-term sustainability.
So they just didn't care about the future.
Right. By cutting off the natural life cycle and hiding the bones, the Order intentionally manufactured scarcity.
Manufactured scarcity. That is such a key concept.
Yes. Think about it mechanically. If magic is abundant and freely flowing through the earth, the Order isn't special. Anyone could potentially access it.
Right.
But if magic is rare, dying, and tightly locked in a crypt, the public becomes entirely, desperately dependent on the Order's miracles.
Oh, wow.
It allows them to charge whatever exorbitant tithes they want. It allows them to rule from a black marble temple while the people who actually tend the earth starve. They were perfectly willing to kill the world slowly, as long as they got to rule the ashes.
Wow. They literally weaponized the extinction of magic to line their own pockets. And once Adela fully understands this, it brings us to the climax of the story. Down in that crypt, surrounded by thousands of trapped souls, Adela finally, fully embraces her role as a ruinous creature.
Because she realizes that the only way to fix a world held hostage by a dam is to break the concrete.
She stops running from the fire and just lets it burn. Sarai corners them. She has Kian beaten to a pulp, and she tries to force Adela to serve her by threatening to torture Adela's father and her best friend Cecilia.
Big mistake.
Huge mistake, and Adela just snaps. She unleashes her destructive power completely. She looks at Sarai and says, "I am a ruinous creature, and I will destroy you."
Chills. Just chills.
And with a single thought, she turns Sarai's diamond-encrusted unicorn skull, the source of all the High Priestess's authority, to pure gray ash.
And it strips the High Priestess of all her power instantly. It's an incredibly satisfying moment of reclaiming agency.
It really is. And it kicks off a full-scale rebellion. Adela and Kian take over the crypt. They commandeer the wagons, load up the thousands of hoarded skulls, but instead of keeping them, they start matching them to good, everyday people.
People who actually want to help the city's poor.
Right. Adela's friend Cecilia gets a kelpie skull. Her dad gets a griffin.
They bypass the religious hierarchy entirely and democratize the magic.
Exactly. But the most beautiful, impactful moment is what they do with the rest. They take the remaining thousands of unused skulls back to a wide meadow in the rural valley, and they build a massive pyre.
A literal bonfire of the vanity.
Yes. They set it all ablaze, and it is this gorgeous cinematic visual. As the thousands of bones burn and turn to ash, Kian uses his magic of rebirth to funnel all that released ancient energy straight back into the earth.
And because the dam has finally been broken, the ecological result is instantaneous.
Dead trees literally sprout green buds right before their eyes. The dark soil turns rich and fertile, and the living creatures in the valley, like this little baby alicorn named Tani that they had rescued earlier, they start dancing and playing with this chaotic, joyful energy.
The natural cycle of the world is finally restored.
And the emotional weight of that resolution is so profound. Adela had to accept that being a destroyer was exactly what the goddess and the ecosystem needed her to be.
Without her willingness to completely obliterate the corrupt institution of the orders, Kian's rebirth magic would have had absolutely no fertile soil to take root in.
Two halves of a whole. So bringing this all together, we've journeyed from a dying, magically starved valley through the uncovering of a 300-year-old conspiracy in a subterranean crypt, all the way to a fiery ecological rebirth.
It's quite a ride.
Ruinous Creatures is a thrilling fantasy, but at its core, it's a story about how systems of power will gladly kill the very world that sustains them, just to maintain their grip.
It is a stark, beautifully written warning about the dangers of prioritizing control and profit over community and nature.
And that's exactly why this matters to you listening right now. Because while this is a fantasy novel about dragons and phoenixes, it holds up a very clear mirror to our reality.
Uncomfortably clear sometimes.
Think about the world we live in, the systems you participate in every day, whether it's wealth, whether it's housing, natural resources, or even access to life-saving medicine or information.
Manufactured scarcity is a very real tactic.
It is. It is used constantly by those in power to keep the rest of us dependent and paying a premium.
The methods might look different. We might not be trading in polished bones, but the mechanism of control is identical. Hoard the resource, control the supply, dictate the price.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with something to chew on long after this deep dive ends. Take a hard look at the massive institutions around you today. The ones that seem too big to fail, too entrenched to ever question.
The modern-day orders.
Right. What essential magic or resources are they currently hoarding in their own modern-day crypts? And if that system is fundamentally broken, serving only the people at the top while starving the roots, who are the ruinous creatures today?
Who is going to be the fire?
Who are the people willing to burn a corrupt system to the ground so that something better actually has the space to grow? Because as we've learned today, you can't build a future by continuously polishing the dead bones of the past.